hangt een man in die kerkklok. Hallo iedereen, de tweede dag van de Normandië-vlog. En ik sta hier midden in een ander stuk van Normandië. Daar is het strand, niet de D-Day-stranden. Wel, deze stranden gaan we ook ooit bezoeken. En hier is een plant met dinosaurussen. Oké, goed. Dus, dit is dus een stuk van Normandië. En dat lijkt op een iets, zo'n informatiecentrum. Oh nee, dat is daar. En weet ik niet wat dat is, misschien wel. Een random fietser. Het is helaas een beetje te koud om te zwemmen. Ik zou het wel leuk hebben gevonden om te zwemmen, maar daar is het een beetje te koud voor. Dus, we gaan de stad in.
Oh, well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird, bird. Bird is a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird. The bird's a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a word. Oh, well, a bird, bird. The bird's a word. Oh, well, don't you know about the bird? Well, everybody knows that the bird is a word. Oh, well, a bird. The bird's a bird with it. Oh, well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner with a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner with a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner with a...
Represents the different landing beaches. So you can see the world divided into 5 parts. 2 American areas to the west, Utah and Omaha, and 3 British and Canadian areas with Gold, Juno and Sol. Our museum is dedicated to the 6th British Airborne Division. This division landed here, in the circle, where you can see the parachute. So the division landed here on the 6th of June 1944 between midnight and 5 o'clock. It corresponds to the very beginning of D-Day. The circle which is here on the map is represented by this model. That will be easier to understand. So 6th British Airborne Division was composed of 12,000 men. In these 12,000 men, there were some paratroopers and some glider-borne troops. I'll talk about gliders later. When all these soldiers landed, they had one main task to reach. The goal was to secure the eastern flank of the landing beaches. That is to say, this area. The white part you can see here corresponds to the beginning of Sol Beach. And so to reach this goal, they had to achieve 3 different missions. The first mission was to liberate 2 bridges. The first bridge was on a canal that you can see here. The bridge on the canal was the Belleville Bridge, right here. This bridge was called, after the landing, Pegasus Bridge, because it was liberated by the soldiers of 6th Airborne Division who wore the badge of Pegasus. That's why they called it Pegasus Bridge. The second bridge they had to take was on the River Orne, situated here. It was the Ronville Bridge, this one. In fact, they had to capture these 2 bridges intact because they represented the only crossing points of the canal and of the River Orne. So you can see here some small boats. On the 6th of June, at 7:30 a.m., some commandos had to land here on Sol Beach. Now you can see the itinerary of these commandos after their landing. So you can note they had to cross the canal and the River Orne, so they had to use these 2 bridges in order to reinforce 6th Airborne Division, landed in this area several hours before. So if one of these 2 bridges was destroyed, 6th Airborne Division would have been isolated here, and so probably lost. So that was the first mission. The second one was to destroy 5 bridges on the River Dive. This is the River Dive. The bridges were here. You can see 5 lights. This way, it would stop the arrival of German reinforcements coming from the east and German counterattacks as well. As for the third mission, it was to destroy a battery. That's the Merville battery, situated here. Before D-Day, the Allies flew over the area. They took some pictures. On the pictures, they saw Merville battery was composed of 4 bunkers, some big bunkers. So that's why the Allies thought in these bunkers there were some guns of 150mm caliber each one. A gun of its size can fire at about 12 miles distance. So it means the guns could fire on Saw Beach and a bit on Juno Beach as well, which is not on the model. Obviously, it was a problem. A lot of troops had to land here all along the coast so the guns could reach them. That's why they had to destroy the battery. Some paratroopers were planned to attack the Merville battery. Unfortunately, some of the pilots who transported these paratroopers confused the River Orne and the River Dive. It was during the night, that's why they got confused. And so the major part of the troops and the material landed around the River Dive, far from the battery. First problem. Second problem, you've got here on the model a green part which is darker. This represents a swamp. Most of the Allied paratroopers landed and died in the swamp. So in the middle of the night, to take the Merville battery, only 150 men were present at the appointment, whereas 650 men were dropped. But they all landed at the wrong place. Despite everything, they decided to go and to attack the battery with only 150 soldiers. Finally, they succeeded. They took the battery, but they just neutralized it. I mean, they didn't destroy it as it was planned. They didn't have men and material enough to do it. Then they realized there were 4 guns, not of 150mm caliber as they expected. They found some smaller guns of only 100mm caliber. But obviously the Allies couldn't know before D-Day. So basically, these 3 missions were decisive for the rest of D-Day because it was the beginning. And for all these operations, some gliders were used. Gliders were silent, no engine, so no noise. It enabled to attack the enemy by surprise. 2 types of gliders were used by British Army during the Second World War. The biggest one was called Hamilcar glider. You can see its model up there. So this one was used to carry some heavy material, such as tanks. Its weight was about 16 tons. To give you an idea of its size, maybe you can try to imagine a coach with wings. It's almost the same. The other one was smaller. It was the Horsa glider. We've got a replica of it here in the park of the museum, a full-size copy. Otherwise, you can see its model right here. So obviously, to take off, it was towed by a bomber, Halifax or Short Sterling most of the time. Horsa gliders were used to carry some light material, a jeep with its trailer, or a small gun, or some troops. 30 soldiers could be in this type of glider. And so to liberate the 2 bridges here, 6 Horsa gliders were planned. That is to say, 3 gliders per bridge. So you've got here on the model 3 gliders, corresponding to the gliders which liberated the Pegasus Bridge over the canal. So these 3 gliders took off from the south of England at about 11 p.m. on the 5th of June. It took about 1 hour to cross the channel. Then they were released above the Norman coast at 1,600 meters high. This is their flight once they were released. This flight represents 10 miles to glide. So you can see they turned in a small village, Saint-Honoré-la-Charbonnette, and they landed here, the red light. You can note it's not a direct flight. You see they turned back, which is surprising because they could land, for example, like this. But the goal was to land close to the bridge, as close as possible. Like this, the gliders landed moving away from the bridge to the south. On the contrary, it's It's easy to see here thanks to the lights. They could land going closer to it. Then it was easier to capture it. So the gliders landed here. That's the first red light. The bridge is here. You see it's very close. The first glider landed at midnight 16 at 45 yards from the bridge, which is very impressive because to pilot a glider they had only a compass and a stopwatch. That's all. In the night, midnight 16, no light except the moon. It was a half moon, but it was cloudy, so not very easy. The second glider landed at midnight 17 at 75 yards from the bridge. The third one, midnight 18, landed in between. So that's the middle one here on the model. Okay, we saw the gliders concerning Pegasus Bridge. Let's have a look at the second bridge. Here on the model, there are only 2 gliders close to the red light. Remember, I've said 3 gliders per bridge, so one is missing because it got lost. And it landed far from the bridge. That's the one. So where is it here? The pilots confused the river arm and the river div once again. This glider landed close to a bridge. There's a bridge right there, but that's not the right one, unfortunately. The soldiers who were in this glider realized there was a mistake, but there are about 10 miles between these 2 rivers, so they couldn't join immediately the rest of the troops. They said, we have a mission, we must take a bridge, let's take one. And that's why they liberated that bridge, even if they knew it was the wrong one, so that's a little. Then they decided to join their unit, but they had to walk across the swamp, and as you can imagine, all this area was occupied. So it took 24 hours just to join, but they succeeded, finally. Right, I think that's all I wanted to say about this model, but perhaps you have some questions about it? Yes?
What about that cluster?
The white dots?
Yeah.
Yes. So the white dots correspond to paratroopers. So you see 3 areas where they were dropped. I've said earlier, the main goal was to secure the eastern flank, or liberate the eastern flank, which is the same. So that's why some paratroopers were dropped in this area. And maybe we can say a few words about Ronville here on the model, because this is the village where we are now, Ronville. The paratroopers were dropped on Ronville at midnight 50. That is to say 20 minutes after the liberation of these 2 bridges. This took place at midnight. Okay? So 20 minutes after, some paratroopers were dropped on Ronville. Some of these paratroopers had to liberate the village. And in fact, Ronville was the first village in France to be liberated officially at 2:30 a.m. on the 6th of June. And the rest of these paratroopers had to reinforce the soldiers who liberated the 2 bridges, because they had to hold the bridges from midnight to midday. Midday because the commandos landed at 7:30 on Sword, and they had to join the soldiers of 6th Airborne Division on Pegasus Bridge at midday. So they had to hold it during about 12 hours, which was quite long. So they needed reinforcements. And you can see groups of gliders as well, because they needed some material. So all the material was brought thanks to the gliders in the same night, between the 5th and the 6th of June.
Were the German reinforcements, the earliest ones I suppose, were at Caen? What was the ones that were on the east?
They couldn't cross because all the bridges were destroyed.
How far away were they?
In Lisieux, so that's about 50 kilometers far from here. So they arrived very late,
yeah.
In fact.
Where were the Germans' main stations? You've mentioned the